This is Okinawa, an island in the Pacific that belongs to Japan. It's known for its turquoise waters, vibrant culture, and rich natural biodiversity. But lately, something troubling has been happening. The forests of Okinawa are disappearing at a rapid pace. Trees are being cut down. And no, it's not to make furniture or build houses. This isn't about commercial logging. The reason behind the deforestation is far more controversial: the relocation of a U.S. military base. Now, this isn't just any forest. Okinawa's ecosystem is home to countless endemic species, plants and animals that exist nowhere else on Earth. It's a fragile, irreplaceable environment. And yet, it's being cleared to make way for a massive military infrastructure project. The story behind it is long, tangled, and full of political, environmental, and military complications. So let's unpack what's really happening here. To understand the present, we need to go back in time, specifically to the end of World War II. In 1945, after the brutal Battle of Okinawa, the U.S. military took control of the island and began constructing bases. Over time, these bases would come to occupy nearly 20% of Okinawa's land area. Among them was the Futenma Air Base, built right in the heart of Genowan City, a densely populated urban area home to more than 100,000 people. Futenma became a key military asset, housing around 3,000 Marines and serving as a hub for air support operations throughout the Indo-Pacific. It's equipped with a 1.7-mile runway, hangars, housing, logistics centers, and more. The only problem? It's completely surrounded by city buildings. Imagine an airport located right in the middle of a city. It's loud, it's risky, and it's invasive. If you've ever seen photos of planes flying low over Hong Kong's old Kai Tak Airport, you get the idea. While Kai Tak was eventually shut down for those very reasons, Futenma continues to operate. Granted, it's not a commercial airport, so there's less traffic, but the risks haven't gone away. In 2004, those risks became very real. A U.S. military helicopter crashed onto the grounds of Okinawa International University. Fortunately, there were no fatalities, but it was a wake-up call. If a larger aircraft had gone down, the outcome could have been catastrophic. After all, there are no empty fields to make an emergency landing, just homes, schools, and offices. Beyond the safety hazards, there are environmental concerns as well. In the early 1980s, a retired U.S. lieutenant colonel claimed his team discovered leaking barrels of Agent Orange, a toxic herbicide used during the Vietnam War, while the Department of Defense denied this, saying no such chemicals were ever stored there. The legacy of contamination remained a serious concern. In 2019, the situation escalated when high levels of a chemical called PFOS were detected in the local water supply. PFOS is known to accumulate in the human body and has been linked to cancer, kidney disease, and thyroid disorders. Worse yet, the compound was found in the blood of nearby residents, but Japanese authorities weren't even allowed to inspect the base. Public anger boiled over. People wanted the base shut down. Protests grew louder. Still, the plan wasn't to close Futenma entirely. It was to relocate it elsewhere on the island. Originally, there were talks of moving the facility off Okinawa altogether, but eventually, both U.S. and Japanese authorities settled on a site within the island, Camp Schwab, located in Ara Bay. This area, while less populated, presented its own set of challenges. It would require constructing new artificial land, including a massive runway extending into the bay. The construction plan has been riddled with delays and controversy. In 2018, it was revealed that soil and rock were being dumped in preparation for the base's relocation, despite ongoing protests. By 2022, progress stood at just 14%. The current estimate, the project won't be complete until at least 2032, and that's optimistic. So what's taking so long? For one, building artificial land isn't as simple as dumping dirt into the sea. The seabed in Ara Bay is made of soft clay, which settles unevenly. Engineers have to stabilize the land before anything can be built on it, which involves driving thousands of piles deep into the seafloor and layering enormous amounts of fill material. To give you a sense of scale, let's compare it to Hong Kong International Airport, which is mostly built on reclaimed land. That project used over 10 billion cubic feet of soil. The Okinawa runway plan, covering about 270 acres, will require roughly 1 billion cubic feet, just in its first phase. Maybe more, considering the depth and instability of the seabed. It's a massive engineering effort, with a price tag already soaring to $23 billion, 10 times the original estimate. But beyond the technical hurdles lies an even greater issue: the environmental cost. Our bay is a biodiversity hotspot. It's home to over 5,000 marine species, including rare fish, coral, and Okinawa's last remaining dugongs, a gentle, endangered sea mammal related to the manatee. According to Japan's own Ministry of Defense, more than 260 endangered species live in the bay. And that's just the ones we know about. Scientists believe the area holds species not yet discovered. Many of them will likely disappear before we even get a chance to study them. And it's not just marine life at risk. Migratory birds, especially terns, travel from as far as Australia to nest in the bay. But their numbers are falling fast. Even before major construction began, one species of seaweed had already gone extinct. With oil barriers and new land dividing the waters, the delicate ecosystem is being thrown off balance. And here's the kicker. All this is happening against the will of the Okinawan people. For years, Okinawa's governor, Takeshi Onaga, fought to block construction. He vetoed permits, rallied support, and stood firmly against the base's expansion. But in 2023, Japan's Supreme Court ruled that the prefectural government had to approve the project. Local opposition was effectively overridden. So what do we have? We have a military base that locals have long opposed, an installation born out of post-war occupation, now reshaped into a symbol of resistance. It's being relocated not with consensus, but through forceful political maneuvering. The new site sits within one of Japan's most biodiverse coastal regions, where human presence has historically coexisted with nature through careful stewardship. That balance is now being shattered. This isn't just about one piece of land. It's about the slow erosion of autonomy for the people who call this island home. Their voices have been drowned out in national politics. Multiple referendums, consistent protests, and public outcry have made their position clear. Yet construction continues, against their will, and often without adequate transparency. Meanwhile, the economic argument for the base becomes harder to defend. Costs have spiraled far beyond projections, straining public budgets and casting doubt on the efficiency of the entire relocation. Critics question whether this investment serves national security or merely preserves geopolitical optics. The delay itself has become a liability, draining resources while achieving little. And in the background, Okinawa is changing. Concrete fills its shores. Trees fall for access roads. Coral dies off before it can be studied. Each change, seemingly small, contributes to the loss of something irreplaceable, a cultural and ecological heritage that once defined the island. This is no longer just a military issue. It's a test of what kind of future Japan wants to build. One driven by local voices, sustainability, and respect for nature, or one dominated by top-down decisions, strategic convenience, and irreversible damage? The final chapter is still being written. But one thing's clear. Whatever happens in Okinawa won't stay in Okinawa. It will echo through ecosystems, communities, and international relations for decades to come. Salmon in the trees in Washington state might sound strange, but if you visit, it's exactly what you might see. For the past 20 years, people have been tossing dead salmon into the forest, onto trees, bushes, and just about anywhere they can. At first, this may seem like a bizarre and pointless activity, especially since the U.S. has been struggling with salmon population issues for years, investing billions of dollars into restoring their numbers. There have even been protests and discussions about tearing down dams, huge structures that cost millions to build. But in Washington, things seem to work differently. Despite the ongoing salmon crisis, people just throw the fish into the forest. So, why have they been doing this for 2 decades? And what impact could it have? Washington state is home to several salmon hatcheries, which are dedicated to preserving the once thriving salmon populations that were an iconic part of the Pacific Northwest. These hatcheries, like the Carson National Fish Hatchery, some of which have been around for over 80 years, aim to keep the salmon alive in the face of challenges. However, one major obstacle is the extensive network of dams built along the Columbia River in recent decades. Salmon, by nature, are anadromous, meaning they're born in rivers, streams, or lakes, swim out to the ocean, and then return to their birthplace to spawn. However, the dams block their path, making it much harder for them to travel upstream. While Washington isn't the only state dealing with this problem, the state is particularly affected since the Columbia River runs through it. There are countless dams along the river, which creates significant challenges for salmon migration. To address this, authorities have spent vast amounts of money on hatcheries, maintaining aging facilities that cost over $2.2 billion in the past 2 decades. Yet, despite this financial commitment, the salmon population in the Columbia Basin continues to decline. While hatcheries produce millions of salmon each year, the number of wild fish in the region has dramatically decreased. Out of 6 species of salmon, 13 separate populations are now listed as endangered. Although 250 million hatchery-raised salmon are released into the ocean every year, the survival rate is less than a fifth of what it used to be. In some cases, as low as 4% of hatchery-raised salmon make it back to spawn, which is below the minimum threshold required for recovery. The situation is grim. The high cost of bringing back salmon has been challenging for both authorities and locals. The government's cost per returning fish can range from $250 to $650. In communities where salmon once thrived, such as the Quiltruckies, who once relied on salmon for 60% of their diet, the catch is now less than 1 fish per person for their 10,000 residents. The declining salmon population is not just an environmental issue, but also a socioeconomic one for communities that depend on it. Further compounding the issue, salmon farming has raised additional concerns. In 2017, a salmon farm run by Cook Aquaculture, an international company, operated near Washington shores. The farm raised non-native Atlantic salmon, which could outcompete the local species. This led to protests, with locals fearing that the Atlantic salmon might further harm native populations. Despite these challenges, Washington state's salmon crisis continues, and every fish counts. Federal scientists predict that the situation will worsen in the coming years, with the survival rates continuing to drop. Washington salmon are in peril, and efforts to improve their survival need to be escalated. Now, let's take a closer look at Hansen Creek, located near Seattle. This is where the unique practice of tossing dead salmon into the forest has been going on for 2 decades. Over the years, nearly 300 tons of dead fish have been scattered along the creek's banks. But why? This isn't a deliberate attempt to reduce the salmon population. Instead, it's part of a research project by the University of Washington. Every year, tens of thousands of salmon return from the ocean to spawn and die in Hansen Creek. For certain types of salmon, this is completely normal. After spawning, most of them stop eating and spend their last energy on reproducing. Researchers have been collecting the dead fish and throwing them into the forest as part of a long-term experiment. The results of this experiment are fascinating. Before the study started, trees along the creek where the fish were dumped grew slower than on the opposite bank. However, after 20 years and 300 tons of fish, something interesting happened. The vegetation on the fish bank caught up. The nutrient-rich salmon bodies, once decomposed, provided essential elements like nitrogen and phosphorus to the soil, helping the forest flourish. It turns out that salmon effectively act as natural fertilizer for the forest. Adult salmon, after spending time in the ocean, bring back valuable nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus when they return to spawn. Research has shown that an adult sockeye salmon contains an average of 4.6 ounces of nitrogen, 7 ounces of phosphorus, and over 20,000 kilojoules of energy. When these salmon decompose, they release these nutrients into the environment, which significantly benefits the surrounding vegetation. In some areas, up to 70% of the nitrogen in the tree leaves came directly from salmon. This boost in nutrients leads to faster tree growth. In fact, trees like the Sitka spruce grow 3 times faster when located near salmon spawning areas. But the relationship between salmon and the forest is not one-sided. Trees also play a crucial role in salmon survival. The roots of trees stabilize the stream banks, reducing erosion and protecting the clean water that salmon need. Additionally, the trees provide shade, keeping the water cool and livable for the salmon. As they grow, the trees also provide shelter for young salmon, offering hiding spots away from predators and strong currents. While humans have been tossing dead fish into the forest as an experiment, nature has been carrying out this cycle for millennia. Animals like bears, wolves, and eagles also help spread salmon remains into the forest. These creatures take what they need from the fish and leave behind the leftovers, which are then broken down by other animals and insects. As the nutrients from the decomposing fish permeate the ecosystem, the forest thrives. In fact, the Nisqually tribe in Washington has been throwing dead salmon carcasses into the Nisqually River since 1999. This practice, intended to nourish the river's ecosystem, has been shown to boost biodiversity and help the young salmon that need these nutrients to survive. However, as the salmon population has dwindled, the amount of dead fish available to nourish the ecosystem has decreased, leading to a decline in both salmon and the species that rely on them. Despite this, the solution isn't to keep throwing salmon into the forest or rivers. Instead, the key is to restore natural conditions. One of the most important steps in this process is removing barriers, like dams. In Oregon, a project is underway to restore what's known as a fish highway, removing obstacles like culverts that prevent salmon from reaching their spawning grounds. Over the past decade, the project has removed 43 of 93 planned barriers, restoring over 115 miles of habitat. The effort to remove these barriers is essential for the survival of the salmon population, as it enables the fish to reach their spawning grounds more easily. Not only will this project help salmon, but it will also benefit the local community. Oregon's fishing industry generates significant revenue, and as the salmon population increases, so too will the number of fishermen and the economic benefits they bring. Even local dairy farms, which rely on the area's heavy rainfall, benefit from the improvements to the region's infrastructure. Dams continue to be a significant obstacle for salmon, but progress is being made. In 2024, there were plans to remove dams along the Clutha River, a once thriving salmon habitat. The removal process involves careful planning to mitigate the environmental impacts, ensuring that the river can return to its natural state and support a healthier salmon population. Experts predict that it will take 12 to 25 years for salmon populations to stabilize after these efforts, but the long-term outlook is promising, with a potential 46% increase in ocean catch over the next 30 years. In conclusion, while the practice of throwing dead salmon into the forest may seem odd, it highlights an important aspect of the struggle to restore salmon populations in Washington. It's not just about hatcheries and artificial efforts. It's about creating the right conditions for nature to take its course. By removing obstacles like dams, we can give salmon a fighting chance to survive and thrive, benefiting both the environment and the communities that depend on them.